You're listening to Unjiggered, a bartender podcast where we interview highly successful bartenders about their careers, lives, and the passion of bartending. This week we caught up with Mr Cocchi himself, Roberto Bava, who chats about his wineries, the recent vermouth explosion, and of course, Cocchi itself. With this podcast, we want to peel back the mask and discover just how the greats really became the greats. So sit back and enjoy.
I'm Roberto Bava, come from Italy. I have great passions. One of these is wine. I love sparkling wine. And vermouth, yes. Chocolate is another passion. So I'm an Italian with a lot of passions.
Thank you very much for finding the time to see each other here in beautiful Singapore during a Singapore Cocktail Festival. How did you get along during the festival?
It was fantastic because I didn't expect this. It was fun. Normally it's fun, but it's heavy. This was delightful and light, but serious. I met all my friends of the industry. I didn't expect this.
It's a quite busy couple of weeks nowadays, but it's great fun because everybody gets to come over, right? So tell us a little bit about you. We know you as Mr Cocchi, but Cocchi is not your surname. So how did you get there?
Well, I come from a long story in Piemonte. My family has been growing grapes for 300 years. 300 years is a lot. We are a wine grower, and we own and run a winery, a family winery, call it Bava, B-A-V-A. And 40 years ago, my father entered and joined the Cocchi family, and then we took over. So we also are another winery, call it Cocchi, which you are probably the one you like better as a bartender.
Probably, yeah.
But sommelier, I guess, would love better Bava because of Barolo, Barbera, so great wines from Piemonte.
Cocchi is a quite recent thing, is it? At least how vermouth exploded.
Oh, well, Cocchi is a very young company established 128 years ago. I got on board. I just got a degree in marketing at Turin University. And I found myself to be 20 years old and be in top of one of the oldest sparkling winery and vermouth producer in Italy. It was quite an exercise at that time. All my team were average 60, 70 years old, and I was 20. So it was quite challenging, but phenomenal. And until then, I've been the manager, CEO, how do you want to call it? So I never got a real career. I've been the CEO forever of a small winery in Asti, just next to Torino.
Tell us a bit more, because although the brand has a lot of history, I started to work with Cocchi for the first time in Savoy Hotel, so that was probably 2012. But before that, at least from a global reach, it wasn't very, very popular, right? Because vermouth just exploded as a category very recently.
Actually, we have been always existing. Cocchi was in 1910. Mr. Cocchi had 13 bars around the world. One was even in Caracas, and one was in Addis Abeba in Africa. So, Cocchi was a cool name since the beginning of last century. The question is, where were you? Because
that's also very possible. Yeah.
We have been making Americano. Mr. Cocchi invented the Americano. It was 1891. And since then, it's never been stopped. So it's a product that goes back like a monument in the taste of Italy. And vermouth also. And I would mention also Barolo Chinato, which is a rare category in the almost vermouth family. So let's say a super rich vermouth, if you want to see it like this. And they've been there forever. The point is that we discontinued in the 80s the production of vermouth because it was such a poor market. We couldn't fit in a market selling few cents a bottle. If you put together the wine, the cost of the bottle, the whole exercise, our price was too high. So we couldn't understand how it could happen. This was the 80s and the 90s. Then we came back saying, hey, we wanted to come back with that same vermouth, asking for the price it deserved. And the price was higher at that point, no more today, but compared to an entry-level price, this was double. So we had to create a new category of a premium vermouth. And this was really a Cocchi exercise for at least 1 or 2 years. Then, thanks to God, we got together all the colleagues, all the new producers, the old producers. So I'm so happy that we are almost a family trying to generate a new identity of vermouth. So the big guys, the small guys, we all are working together in a good feeling.
What made it possible for vermouth to come back into like a premium form?
I have a very precise idea because this is my life in last 10 years. And when we met, it was the beginning of it. So you are also one of these, you have a role in this recent history, like the Savoy and all the super bar in the world at that time. So I have a precise idea. I believe that what was the game-changing situation was, first of all, internet, who spread around the world ideas and information. And also the boom of the cocktail renaissance. In a way, I would also give a role to the vintage style of Cocchi, where it's a very nice, it's a cool design, everything is cool in it. But even more, your generation, a generation bringing on the market passion, and I always do a parallel with chef doing miles and miles to get a special salad or a kind of onion or what else. You did the same. I've seen things like suitcase import of our bottles everywhere from passionate bartender doing it because they really need to add that specific ingredient. And that specific ingredient for us was the new vermouth di Torino. It was the Cocchi Americano. It was the Barolo Chinato, etc., etc. So your generation, a renaissance, internet, so spreading the news and quality.
Tell us a little bit about the corporate structure behind Cocchi, because it's three brothers, right? I mean, I like to use the word corporate structure, but...
Well, thank you. Let's say that board of directors is done at the breakfast, and we also have. Well, anyway, my brother Paolo, he is the botanist and the wine maker. He's expert in this. He's a great expertise. He's a real grower. So don't forget, both sparkling wine and vermouth are grape. So you need to start from that, and we are. Giulio, my second brother, is more keen on sparkling wine. He's very, very serious about. He's the champagnista of the situation, and he also runs some market like the Italian market. And I am the general manager, but doing also marketing. I would say that we have now a new great support from my daughter Francesca. She's young. She entered as a marketing director, and she's very, very effective. So we are already in the next generation. Considering that we also have my father, who's still on board, 86 years old, and doing the financial side. He's very focusing on this. It's a good team. Of course, we have an extra 2 or 3 people in the cellar, plus a few people in the botanist side. And what would surprise you is that we are let's around 15 people. Okay. And we are worldwide.
I didn't know it was just 15 of you.
Yeah.
Let's include the wine side?
Yes.
Interesting. Talk to us a little bit about the wine side of the Bava business.
Well, Bava is a little, let's say that internationally has been around for more, because wine from Italy and from Piemonte specifically have always been very, very popular. So let's say that we are now in Singapore. We were in Singapore since the end of the 80s, supplying the Italian restaurant, etc. But we have been around for longer. So I would say that the spread around of Cocchi was supported by the knowledge of the market of the Bava, but it was more a wine market. But at least we knew the market. So we are now today from Russia to US to Vietnam, Cambodia, Laos. We still miss Malaysia for a reason, but Thailand. So we are on the market. We don't sell, we build a market.
Okay. And the winery is based in the village of Cocconato. Could you tell us about the metropolitan city of...
Well, more than a metropolitan city, we are an independent republic. We are 1,599 people. I guess probably we can fit in one of these buildings of the village, and the mayor on top of it. And 25 different origins. So we have Swiss people, we have Albanian people, we have, we miss the Mexican. But it's a small village in top of a hill, known for having probably some of the best white truffles, to have salami, cheese, and of course very good wine. So people come like a destination all around. We are in the center of an area between Milano, Torino, and Langhe and Asti. So it's quite central, and it's really the center of the world, in the middle of nowhere.
So were you a bit surprised about how vermouth exploded as a category, or not really?
No, yes and no. It has been my recent life challenge. So if you put your passion in your 24-hour a day, 25-hour a day energy, you are not surprised. It's just a matter of planning the point. I'm surprised how it came fast.
Mhm.
I would say that my life has been a rush in the last 10 years. I'm jumping all. I don't buy anyway more a flight ticket. I take a round the world ticket, and that's my recent life. And yeah, it has been faster because for the reason I told you, everything goes faster, but also the information and also the research for quality. So on several markets, you would find still today different level of knowledge. So it's true that you see an absolute beginner market, but you know how it will be because you have seen a medium market and a mature market. So you understand immediately what will be the process of this market for our category. And I think I'm the one who's really understanding because I'm in all of these markets, starting from the new beginner, building the perception of the product, or the more sophisticated markets like this one.
You mentioned category a lot. The category, as we said, is exploding. Like old brands are coming back into the market. There are new brands coming out of it. What steps did you take to make sure that there's a certain level of consistency, right? Because vermouth is a category, especially like vermouth di Torino from that specific area, it has to have sort of a specific style. Am I correct?
Yes, you are. There's an European law that define what is an aromatized wine, and vermouth di Torino and vermouth are aromatized wine. So at least you know that 75% is wine plus the botanical, etc. But we wanted to be more specific with the di Torino because you are aware that Piemonte and Torino and the former kingdom of Savoy is really what you could call the kingdom of vermouth. This is where vermouth and this kind of product were born. At least talking about the modern vermouth. Modern in Europe means 300 years old anyway. So the funny story is that this kingdom was split in two in 1861, and part of it went to France and part went to Italy. So also vermouth was split in two, and you start with two markets where vermouth was understood, made like you would do your homemade liqueur. I mean, vermouth was easy and popular at that time. And then step by step with the emigration, it went all around the world. Especially the Italian went to South America. But what do we do today? Today we have a law very specific who protect the consumer and ask the producer to follow rules. And what's interesting is that these rules are controlled by the authorities. So no bullshit. It's like something parallel with the Parmigiano Reggiano protection on any food in Italy, and we are very good in this in Italy to give this kind of protection. So vermouth will be under this. It doesn't happen with anything in our spirit industry because sometimes it's not possible to do it. But thanks to the precise origin of the place, Piemonte, thanks to the geographical name of it, from now to the eternity, I hope we'll be able to say vermouth di Torino is made in this area with this botanical, with this alcohol, and if it doesn't work, someone check. So we give a guarantee to the consumer and to the barman.
Do you have any association that helps producers come together?
Yes, it was formerly an institute of vermouth di Torino, and is today a consortio. Consortio has a more powerful role in the control. And I don't know if thanks to Cocchi being a little benchmark in this category today, or because of my, I don't know, passion or volunteering to work for free, I'm serving as president president of both the institute and the consortia. I was voted by my colleagues, but I would say that this couldn't have been possible without really putting together around the table the big, the small, the old, the new. So and the new story is that we'll also control what we call the filiera, which is all the step of the production. So all the ingredients will have a control. I'm talking about wormwood.
Mhm.
So wormwood, wine, etc., going to a bottle of vermouth di Torino will have a control at the origin. So it's safe. And on the long run, in a pyramid, I always say, in a pyramid, in top of it, or the vermouth will be the Torino. So we'll encourage or the origin also to follow us, and we'll be probably the benchmark of the whole category, because we are the oldest, where the vermouth was invented, and the first to have such a phenomenal way of control.
Let's talk a little bit about Roberto Bava, the man, but also about Cocchi as a company. You have a book, right? Like your publishers as well.
Yeah, definitely we are an out-of-the-box company. I open a publishing company, and I publish one book, and this is one of the story. And the book is called The Futurist Mixology, who was a finalist at the Tales of the Cocktail in New Orleans also. This talks about the vintage mixology of 1920s, 1940s in Italy.
Mm-hmm.
And it brings out of the Italian boundaries vintage style of making cocktail. Very sensorial, unbelievable, very, how can I say, pre everything we do today. 8 years ago we were doing this. But we didn't know. I mean, we only believe that we are Negroni and spritz. There's so much more. So this was the reason why Cocchi wanted to enter this. And we took on board a group of vintage producers, starting from Campari, Nardini Grappa, Pralini, Limoncello. All of these old names from Italy came on board, and all together we have the aim to spread around this style of mixology. Very classy, very interesting, by the way. So the best is yet to come in this side. And Cocchi also, we like to sponsor music. We like to do things different. A lot of research. We came out with an ice cream. Recently we released a jelly with vermouth, always with vermouth, of course. So we explore all the vermouth areas because we really need to bring it back also to a whole generation who forgot it, like your mother and father probably. And we go deeper and deeper in bringing vermouth to another level.
Let's talk a little bit more about the book, because I think it's very interesting. Like, at what stage did you think, now I need to write a book about this? Because it's a very obscure subject, so...
Well, first of all, I had another passionate guy called Fulvio Piccinino, who's a writer, a bartender, and a teacher, and he's so deep in futurism. You know, futurism is an art wave in the 1920s in Italy and Europe, and he was so keen on this, and we were also belonging to this time, because if you see our rooster, the Cocchi rooster, the design is, the graphic is very futurist. So we discovered that this artistic movement, they were making cocktail. And the funny story is that they were not barmen. They were architects, they were painters, they were musicians, poets, etc. So it was surprising. And even more surprising, these cocktails were good. So we said, okay, we have 20 original cocktails published. They even didn't call it cocktail. They had to call it polybibita because they couldn't use English. So like multi-drink. Polybibita, and they had to use original product. They had to be very sensorial. They invented to spray flavors around the hue and the cocktail. They had they invented they call it plastico, but means a 3D cocktail. So with the food around it, they invented the side. When you put peanuts next to a glass of something, they invented in a much better way, and it was 8 years ago. They had the colonial side to go around, and you had to taste all the colonial product next to the product, etc., etc. So, I mean, when a barman sees this, it's fascinating. He says, oh, I do it. He says, oh, they were doing it 100 years before you, and they were not barmen. So it's fascinating. We have been making 60 masterclasses around the world recently, bringing all these brands together and teaching this style. It's like if you discover a tiki style suddenly from nothing, but it's original. So again, it's a little specific in a way, but seeing how fast we are going, I guess that people will be more and more curious. You want to be real, you want to be authentic, you want to be vintage, and this is where the futurist movement was and still is. So if you get to the yellow book of the futurist cocktail, you would be surprised, and I know you know it.
Tell us a little bit more about chocolate. You said you love chocolate?
I have not many passion, but where I am, I must be very professional. And chocolate is an addiction. In 1990, with a group of friends, we established the Compagnia del Cioccolato, so the Italian Chocolate Society, which is like a sommelier association for chocolate or the consumer association for chocolate. At that time, chocolate was sold according to the color. You want it black, you want it white, we brought these to percentage. You want it 70% or you want it less or more? So we then went to a next step, teaching around, doing seminar, consulting. We've been consulting the Italian Parliament, the Vatican,
really?
the Coca-Cola, all of these things. The British American Tobacco, because chocolate was an unknown object. And we have been inventing also and building the way to taste the chocolate, which is quite complex, because chocolate is complex and simple in the same way. We have a competition as the Italian Chocolate Society now going on for, I guess, at least 20 years. Very serious. You can't buy, you don't pay. And yes, we have fun. I would say that 65% of girls, because there's a need of serotonin, and for some reason you still have ladies waking up in the night and going and eat Nutella from the fridge. So they have a kind of addiction also, as I have, by the way. So that I'm going back to it. So we brought the chocolate to a next step. The 70%, the origin was the next step. Do you want a chocolate from Madagascar or from Venezuela? The varietals, would you like a Forastero or a Trinitario, a Criollo, etc.? And we are wondering, actually, I have a tasting in London in a week. What's next? I think next will be probably in the genetic more and more. We'll be very deep in this. Genetic may change. All the world is now subject to this OGM, GMO or not, yes, no, etc. So we'll see what's next. But we brought this scenario from colors to varietals in 15 years, 20 years. I'm talking about Italy, but the movement is all around now. I mean, Italian teach a lot in food, so we have been, and we are the benchmark of a lot of these things.
You mentioned that chocolate is quite new, but what makes it new? Like, surely at some point people must have understood what 70%, 80% means. Or do you think it's something that was never taken to this extent?
I have a clear perception that in the 70s and the 80s, chocolate was a commodity. You want some milk, you want some chocolate, you want some bread. There was no need to be very specific because we were not very specific. The more we go on, the more we go deeper, and the more we want information, and the more we know what we like, the less we go back. So once you taste a next step chocolate, you don't want to go back to the Mickey Mouse chocolate. I tell you, it's a human attitude, and it's same for vermouth. I mean, once you discover the good vermouth, oh come on, you don't go back to the Mickey Mouse vermouth.
No.
I have a clear vision of this. It has been going on crossing categories for last 30 years. So in a way, we have good hope, and the best is yet to come.
Fantastic stuff. You mentioned something about music, and I know that you do like some jazz dinners with wine.
Yeah, the approach of the Bava winery, but even the Cocchi, but mainly the Bava winery was very, again, sensorial. So in the 80s, we started to understand that, especially approaching new markets, you had to use the right language. And we are not all sommelier, but we like what we like. So how do we approach a product where you have no specific information, but you want to know how it is, you want to understand if you like it? Tasting is a good step, of course. The more you taste, the more you understand. You make your own flavors range in your brain. And music was one of these scenarios. We added music to the tasting, trying to see if we could explain the taste through the sound. So acidic sound, body sound, sweet sound, etc., etc. So I started to have music in the cellar, live music, asking people to taste and interacting with the musician. How do you play this Chardonnay? How do you play this Barolo? Of course, probably white wine were more on winds instrument because cold, fresh, crispy, and the red wine were more on strings instrument. If I are familiar with wine, you would say that Barolo is more on the violin side because of the acidity, so high notes, and Barolo is more on the back. So Barbera is the acidity, and Barolo is the body. So you would go in the body with the lower notes, low, 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 like a double bass.
Uh-huh.
But still eclectic, because double bass can be jazz and can be super classic. So this is Barolo. Super wine, big, bolded, but also ethereal and elegant.
Where did you host these dinners?
All over the world. I mean, we have 2 music concert hall it's too big to say concert hall, but we can host 100 people in the winery, and we have a stage for a musician. If you go on the Bava TV, you will find on bava.com, you will find the Bava TV, and you have music. And we did a lot of concept dinner, a lot around Asia, I would say. So the approach like 10, 15 years ago in China, the beginning of the market was, okay, you may not need to know the dry extract or the pH of a wine. How about if we play a violin here for you, and you understand that this wine is like a sinusoid flavor, this wine is so thin, flowers, etc. I mean, Allegro. What would you link Allegro talking about a wine? What would you say, Allegro?
Light, fizzy,
Sparkling.
yeah.
So Allegro is not a wine term, it's music, but you use the music to explain the wine. Adagio. How can it be a sparkling wine Adagio? I mean, Adagio is a Chateau Margaux, is a Barolo, is a Amarone. So, in a way, you see that we have been using music like a bridge, meta language, they call it. So, it's a bridge between 2 different languages. And this was a good way to approach new markets. More sensorial, more intellectual if you want, but also very simple.
Are you planning to do the same with cocktails?
I haven't done it yet. Cocktails are complex. They come from a world of complexity. Some ingredients themselves are very complex. I mean, vermouth is very often 30 different botanicals in it. I would say that what put together and make a parallel between maybe a vermouth and a cocktail, or the music and the cocktail, is really the concept of balance. You have to balance all the ingredients. What is an orchestra if not the balance of the strongest sound and the thin? I mean, there's a flute and there's maracas or double bass in a concert, but they all go to a perfect, elegant balance. So this is what you do, Michele, when you do a cocktail. I know you. I see you. You try to balance. You also always move like a dancer sometimes, but
Ballerina.
So it's all about balancing. And when we do a vermouth, I always joke on what a vermouth should taste like. It should taste of vermouth. So the perfect balance. If it tastes of something, like taste of banana, is a vermouth alla banana, which is too much. If it tastes too much of rhubarb, it's an amaro. So vermouth shouldn't taste of anything but itself, the balance of all the ingredients.
When you look back at your career with Cocchi, what's the proudest moment for you?
Oh, that's interesting. I think the proudest moment for me is to have been able to survive difficult moments. Any company, but especially a winery, being longer than 20 years, survived a series of obstacles. Can you imagine that? We survived 3 or 4 generations. Change of generation is sometimes dramatic, sometimes complicated, not very simple normally. We survived 2 World Wars. Even my family winery, we had Nazi and partisan coming and raid the winery several times. So this is also part of survival. So, and I would say that the pride of bringing the winery and the product to the next generation, when you have this perception, yes, that's a reward.
Where do you see vermouth going in the next 10 years or so?
I should ask you.
I know, right?
This is my question. If I know it, I would have a more precise plan on what to do. I will try to answer. Again, as we said, market can be very different. Some are still kindergarten, someone else are already university. So for sure, what I see is that all the kindergarten will become universities. What university will become? This is the question. So I know that we have some time to bring all the smaller new markets to be a university style. through this, it will happen that producer will be more and more organized, and they will spread around. I mean, like in Singapore, there are 3 vermouths. Come on. How many gin you have? Gin, you have
Tons,
huge.
yeah, of course.
So it's going to happen that in Singapore you will have more than the 2 or 3 vermouths you have
Mhm.
today. I'm glad to be one, but I mean, I encourage all your colleagues to have at least 5 labels. Of course, you have to create a market for this,
Mhm.
but sharing is the motto, because sharing is building also a bigger market. So we don't share what we have, but we share the energy and we split the result in more labels, because the beauty is to choose. And the exercise for a producer is to be chosen. So I'm putting my effort to be chosen, but you know how many times it happened that, especially in the wine, that you are the only wine producer in their area. You know what's going to happen? That you need to push someone else to come in the area to be at least 5 or 6. Because how can you the best between you and, and
Nobody
yourself?
else. Yeah.
I mean, the best of 2? Where's the competition? Where's the fun? So I want to be the best among all, or at least 10 vermouths.
Mhm.
That's my promise and my exercise. As a producer, I will be the best of 10 producer. I can't be the best of myself, you know?
Well, you can, but
Yeah,
it's a
but
bit
come on.
sad, yeah.
So again, and this is good. I encourage producer to spread around to make the best possible vermouth, and this would push me to be even better.
What market reacted better to Cocchi? Like, where did you go with your, like, say, you launch new vermouth and you know for sure that this is going to be my base market from where I can build?
Well, for several reasons, talking about the size, United States is our main market. I think that any single American bartender knows Cocchi. I'm sometimes embarrassed and touched by this. England, London is the place where the trend also starts. They influence each other, but they have their own life. But historically, that's the parallel of the two. I would say that I see booming new place. I from today I have the feeling that Singapore will be probably another center of the world, and it's coming and happening in such a short time.
Fast pace.
Of course, man, any place, but for some reason, Singapore, it will be a market to watch.
You mentioned your daughter. She joined the family business.
Yeah, well, I was able to hire her. She was this girl was it's a nice shy girl, but she was teaching for 2 years the future to board of director
Mhm.
in a company called Accenture, which is quite a big company in the world. And so I told her, listen, can I hire you and teach me the future you were teaching to this big corporation? So she came on board, and she showed to have the same passion. She's very precise. So I got a compliment about her at least twice a day everywhere I am. So I think we are in a good hands. She decided also to enter the challenge. So she's got her own exercise, the project called the Chazalette, because she entered in touch with the family Chazalette, who are one of the oldest established, they were one of the oldest established vermouth producer in Torino. And she's been working with them to bring back to the market this recipe. So we bought the book of recipe, we bought the whole archives, and we even got a collaboration of an old man, Giovanni Chazalette. And they brought back these 3 vermouth, which were the vermouth of the royal house. With the certificate, we have the right to use the Queen Mother and the Queen and the Princess crest. And it was a phenomenal cultural exercise, because it's like bringing back from 150 years ago the flavor of the royal cart of Piemonte back to life. They were being discontinued in the 70s, by the way, so it's not that that long ago. But using the Bava expertise and the original recipe there, we produced another 3 totally different wine and vermouth from Cocchi. So they go by themselves, and Francesca is on top of it.
Thing I find very interesting though is when people say they find this old recipe. How difficult is it to take an old recipe and make it relevant for today's market?
Oh, it's difficult. If you do it properly, it takes more than 1 or 2 years. It took a while for us to work on this, because you have to rebalance, etc. It's for us. It was more an archaeological exercise, more than a commercial. I mean. So understanding also the meaning, how were the botanical at that time? Where were they coming from? How was the flavor of the wine they were using? Which kind of wine was it? I mean, the wine 150 years ago was different. Can we replicate the wine that was used 150 years ago? Even botanical, for some reason, changed a little in 1 century. A recipe normally give you a list of ingredients, but how long did you extract your rhubarb? Where did they get their Achillea moscata? Your cardamom. It was 150 years ago. Where are they coming through? Asia, from Africa, from where? In which condition did they come? I mean, it can be complex, or you can be very simple and you decide to make a story.
Okay.
But we are not that kind of people putting label and stories. We really are in top of it. So it was a precise exercise. And it was fascinating. The Chazolette red vermouth de la Regina, so the Queen vermouth, was made with a red wine. So Rosso made with red wine, you believe it's normal, but it's not. All the red vermouth are made with white wines. So this still is one of the very few vermouth made with the red wine as a base. So it's fascinating. And of course we did the dry. The dry was so good. And as you know, Cocchi doesn't produce a dry. So, well.
Ish.
Okay, Savoy.
But would you say that vermouth with the time got drier? Because with cocktails, like if you look at recipes from like 150 years ago, they've got progressively drier until today, right?
Yes and no. The origin of vermouth was both dry and sweet. What came after was a bianco. But actually, the very original naming of vermouth were French vermouth, dry, Italian vermouth or Torino, sweet. Then in the time going, we I don't know if to make it simple, but they were transformed in the three category: rosso, bianco, dry.
Mm-hmm.
But originally they were French, Italian, sweet, and dry. And I don't think it's going to be a dry direction, because if it is made for cocktails, you need both.
Yeah, no, but my question was more about, like, say you take the same style of vermouth, which is like a sweet. Say we take a sweet vermouth. Was it sweeter, like 150 years ago? The same vermouth, or
no? Because once you say 150 grams of sugar per liter, it was the same sweetness 150 years ago.
Okay.
If it was dry, it was 30 grams, and that's it.
Okay.
So today you would do it again with 30 grams. What changed, and that's interesting, and it should be taken into consideration, is the way we preserve and we store, etc. I would say that today the wine are much less oxidized, and the vermouth the same way. I guess you can imagine to have this vermouth stored on shelves and exposed to the sunlight and to different weather. I mean, the bottle open for long. This wine got oxidation very easily. Now we take care a lot. So I would say that you get more and more the botanical, the freshness of a vermouth today than at that time.
Okay. So a question I asked to everyone to close: if you could choose a very last drink, what would that drink be?
A very last normally is water, but you are someone choose for you the very last one. But again, let's be romantic. It's a Negroni. It must be a Negroni.
I know, right? I used to work with a guy called Francesco, and once he said that once you're tired of Negroni, you're tired of life.
So, your last one is Negroni. You want to live more. I mean, it's the centering of Negroni. It's the perfect balance. It's the 3 ingredients. Don't bullshit. Come on. It's the perfect balance. I mean, and Negroni is a product where you can express your character, your style of life. It's a style of life. There are only only 2 cocktails where you can express your style. And you know the other one.
Martini.
It's the Vesper.
No, Vesper is a,
it's
Vesper is a Martini.
In the Martini, anyway. So, James Bond and Negroni, yes.
Thank you very much for your time, Roberto. It was amazing talking to you.
Thank you. Ciao a tutti.
We hope you enjoyed our chat with Roberto. You can find more content from us on YouTube and Instagram, where we post our #HowToClassicCocktails video, where every week we show you how to make classic cocktails in less than a minute. We are Unjiggered_media on Instagram, and you can follow our personal accounts at mmariotti89 for Michele, Alex J. Murphy for myself, and Adrian Bessa for Adrian. Thank you for listening.